I resigned from my nursing job. I walk into this situation and all of a sudden I'm in charge of all of my finances, all of our finances, my student loan debt, our car payment, our rental. And I remember the stress of just having to figure it all out.
You're listening to Financial Grownup with me, certified financial planner, Bobbi Rebell, author of How to Be a Financial Grownup. And you know what? Being a grownup is really hard, especially when it comes to money. But it's okay. We're going to get there together. I'm going to bring you one money story from a financial grownup, one lesson, and then my take on how you can make it your own. We got this. Hey, friends. So this episode is for all of us who have been feeling like our lives changed literally overnight, maybe a few days, let's say, maybe a week, depending on how things evolved in your life. In my case, I flew back from speaking at a conference in Orlando, something like 1,000 people were there, to just days later being under quarantine. How can life change so fast? How do we deal with so much unexpected things we couldn't even conceive of happening? Well, for our latest financial grown-up, it was just a phone call. That's what started it. Everything changed instantly. And she had to take charge of not just her husband's health, but a very complicated financial situation that, had she not been careful, could have completely derailed the young couple's future even more. Tiffany Smiley is a wife, mother of 3, a nurse, the founder of More Than Me, and the co-founder of Hope Unseen with her husband, Scotty. I'll let her share the rest of her story. Here is Tiffany Smiley. Hey, Tiffany Smiley, you're a financial grown-up. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Bobbi. So happy to be here.
Congratulations on the continued success of More Than Me, which you've adapted a lot for the quarantine because you used to do both online and in-person events. Tell us a little bit about that. And we're going to hear more about you with your money story as well.
Yes, More Than Me, I developed a virtual platform for women to come together for personal and professional development because I wanted them to have an ease of access. I love in-person events because I truly believe that nothing replaces in-person relationships and meetups. I did have to pivot though. I pivoted and turned all of my events to virtual, and we're seeing great success in being able to connect women across the nation, actually across the globe, which has been really exciting. But I'll never give up on the in-person meetups. And when it's safe and we're able to, I will be back out there connecting and meeting women and bringing resources to women.
And I think we're all anxious for that. But this quarantine has been really challenging for so many of us. How have you been faring?
Well, it has been challenging. Both my husband and I are professional speakers. That whole business has completely changed. So we have pivoted and now we're home 24/7 with our 3 boys, which is a big change for us. I mean, we're used to being on the road. So it's been an adjustment, I will say. I think there's been moments of grief and sort of grieving the future you thought you might have, or sort of grieving this time of not really knowing what to do in moments and feeling your creativity stifled a little bit. But it's also a moment to embrace it and say, okay, not why, or, like poor me or play the victim card, but just say, okay, what can I do and how am I going to do it?
And one of the reasons that I'm so happy you're joining us is because there's literally no one that I know that could have been more prepared for the unknown and for things not being, this was not the plan, but also in your life when you were just 23 years old, you and your husband, I'm just going to let you tell your money story.
So yes, like you mentioned, at 23, I was a nurse. I was an emergency room nurse, had my bachelor's in science in nursing. I loved helping people. Ever since I was in kindergarten, when they ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? I wrote, I want to be a nurse. It just was in me. And so there was no question out of high school what I was going to go do. And so I went to school to get my bachelor's in science. Married my high school sweetheart, Scotty, who was a military academy grad. And I always joke that it was the picture of the American dream. He was a newly commissioned officer in the military, and I was a nurse, and our new last name was Smiley. You can't get a better last name than that. But, it was the picture of the American dream until April 6th of 2005. when I received a phone call at 3 a.m. in the morning. And I was excited because Scotty would call at different times, but this time it was someone else's voice on the other line. And they said, "I'm so sorry, but Scotty has come face to face with a suicide car bomb. He had been deployed in Iraq, and there's shrapnel in both of his eyes. And I don't even know if he's going to survive." And this strong leader just broke down and started sobbing on the phone to me. So at 23 years old, my world blew up into a million pieces as well on that day. The next day, I resigned from my nursing job. And I took my first one-way flight to meet Scotty out at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. And I remember getting there and feeling so overwhelmed and feeling the weight of the situation. And I remember thinking, you just resigned from your job. Scotty is about to have no job. He's completely blind. The Army doesn't want him anymore. And you're 23, 24 years old. What are you going to do? Like, how are you going to get out of this? And it was in that moment that I realized we really can create the future that we want, but you have to be willing to work hard for it and believe in that vision more than anyone else's doubt.
And you also had to take charge of all the finances.
Yeah, exactly. I resigned from my nursing job. I walk into this situation and all of a sudden I'm in charge of all of my finances, all of our finances, my student loan debt, our car payment, our rental. And I remember the stress of just having to figure it all out. The silver lining of it is that there's always people that can help. And I realized that very quickly, that I needed to reach out and not just hold it so close and not share it, but say, hey, I need help with this. I need help. Ask. The answer is always no unless you ask. And so I all of a sudden became in charge of it all, in charge of our future, in charge of making sure that we could put the puzzle pieces back together. My money story is that I went from a nurse, so I resigned from my nursing job. I realized very quickly that's not going to be something I'm going to go back to, that my new future is going to take what I learned in nursing and I'm going to have to create something totally different to fit my lifestyle. And so I refused to sign paperwork to retire my husband from the military. That allowed him to stay on active duty, which was a huge benefit to our family. And as he stayed on active duty, he went on and did some really amazing things. He wrote a book, he skydived, climbed Mount Rainier, he went to Duke and got his MBA. And, in the process of writing his book, I said, you're not just going to write this and have it go away. So I started a speaking business. And I always laugh because I'm biology and science. And then I remember being on the phone with accountants and crying, like, what do you mean you want a spreadsheet? And what are these numbers? But you really can figure it out along the way. I never in a million years would have thought a source of income for our family and a way of, paying off our student loans and finding space to put a down payment on a house would come from a speaking business.
Wow. What is the lesson for our listeners from that story, especially in this complicated time of this COVID-19 and so many people facing a life that is just not what they expected and be permanently altered for some people?
Yes. It really comes down to being the champion of your own life. And in whatever that looks like, whether you're peeling yourself off the ground, like I had to at rock bottom, but saying, I'm going to champion this life and I'm going to be a self-learner. I'm going to dig deep because the answers are out there. And I learned that, even though it was hard starting that business, I had no idea about the speaking world, but I learned so much along the way. And I'm so glad, I look back now and I think, I'm so glad I did that. I've learned so much from other people. I've learned so much about running a business. And I do love my accountants now. I wouldn't survive without them. But had I not forced myself into that uncomfortable area, I don't think we'd be living in the freedom that we have now. And so I would just say, be the champion of your life and be a self-learner, because there is so much knowledge out there. And if I can do it, anyone could do it. you can save a lot of money by being a self-learner. And to me, you save money and time is money. So I would just encourage whoever's listening to this to think outside the box, to champion your own life and go out and be a self-learner.
So you also have an everyday money tip that expands on that idea of being a self-learner, especially during this time when a lot of us do have a lot of time that we have not always been as productive as we should have. But now that things are unfortunately continuing on for many people or regressing for some people in the country, we may be in this really very much for the long haul. And you have some suggestions for an everyday money tip about self-learning and taking care of yourself.
Yes, I think number one is you got to dive into books. There's so much knowledge in books. One that I just read that I love was by Sally Krawcheck, Own It. So I always feel like I would reach out to spaces that I'm not very comfortable with. Like I would say that's probably not a book I would normally buy, but I wanted to learn and I wanted to be better. And so I think reach out of your comfort zone and read some books that maybe scare you a little bit or you wouldn't normally pick up. Also, there's resources and people. I always say that we are each other's greatest asset. And we need to tap into each other a lot more because something you learned could be something you pass on to me and it helps me in my business. And just like we hosted in More Than Me, we had you come on, Bobby, for our expert coaching call and help the women in our coaching call. I think discussing it, not being afraid to discuss hard topics or money topics or finance, that's something that helped me along the way. So I would say reach out, grab some books, look for extra resources that are out there, whether they're membership groups or, of course, your podcast, Bobby. There is knowledge, so much knowledge out there for us to get a hold of. And something I always loved to do was after I'd read a book, I would discuss it with someone. So I wouldn't just hold it here close to me. I would go to someone, whether it was a mentor or a friend or someone else in business, and I would run the ideas by them, see if they'd heard of them, discuss them, and ask questions that I had in my own life. And I think there's a lot of value to that. It's very simple, but I think it's something we could all do, especially right now.
You also have some resources that you can share with people. How can they learn more about what you're doing and about you and your husband?
Yes. So Scotty wrote Hope Unseen and still travels and speaks. Of course, it's on hold right now. So we are pivoting and finding new ways to share our message. So he is there at Hope Unseen. And then I founded More Than Me, which is a digital platform for women where I bring in experts and personal and professional development experts every month for women around the world. And we have networking calls, expert calls. I do special events there. So it's really an ecosystem for women to come gain knowledge, to connect, to grow, to build their businesses. And I truly believe you cannot build a business unless you're also having personal growth as well. And so I hold a lot of value to that and love encouraging the women. I'm teaching a resilience and confidence workshop coming up. You know, even though I'm not out on the road speaking, I'm still doing it every single month on the More Than Me platform.
Love that. And where can people follow you on social media before I let you go?
Yes, More Than Me movement is our Instagram. And then I'm at Tiffany Smiley. Tiffany Smiley 9 is my Twitter. And on Facebook, I'm Tiffany May Smiley. So I would love to connect with any listeners that are tuning in and just know that I always say, you know, be really sold out to your vision and where you want to go and flexible about your methods to get there because you're going to learn a lot along the way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bobby.
Here's my take. Financial Grownup tip number 1. Tiffany advises that we read a book out of our comfort zone and then talk about it with someone else. I'm going to add to that and suggest that we reread books we read when we were younger. Our perspectives change so much. Maybe choose something you read in high school, maybe even middle school. I bet you see it a little bit differently. Financial Grownup tip number 2. Tiffany talks about learning from other people, but other people can also learn from you. So if you have someone in your life that you can help out, maybe take them under your wings a little bit, consider making the time to help them learn from you. I would love to share more ideas to live a grown-up lifestyle with all of you. So that's why I have created the Grownup List, tips and recommendations, and yes, including book suggestions, curated for a grown-up lifestyle. You can get on the list for free by going to my website, bobbyrebell.com. And as we get close to 300 episodes of the Financial Grownup Podcast, I really want to hear from you how I can make this podcast better. What changes should I make? What kind of guests do you want to hear from? DM me your thoughts on Instagram at BobbyRebel1 and on Twitter at BobbyRebel. Big thanks to More Than Me's Tiffany Smiley for helping us all be financial grown-ups. Financial Grownup with Bobby Rebel is edited and produced by Steve Stewart and is a BRK Media production.